All right, let's talk about Virginia. Because last night wasn't just another election, it was the night the state shattered a 237-year-old glass ceiling. So what exactly happened? And maybe more importantly, what does it all mean for the rest of the country? We're going to break it all down.
Okay, so here it is, the big headline you're seeing everywhere. For the very first time in its entire history, Virginia has elected a woman as its governor. Yep, Democrat Abigail Spanberger didn't just win an election, she literally made history.
And get this, it wasn't even a nail-biter, not even close. Spanberger pulled in a solid 55% of the vote, while her opponent, Republican winsome Earle Sears, got 45%. I mean, a 10-point gap in a state as competitive as Virginia? That is a huge statement.
But this win is about so much more than just the numbers on a chart. To really get the full picture, we've got to look at what this moment means for Virginia itself. We're talking about a real cultural milestone here. And honestly, nothing captures the weight of this moment better than this one story Spanberger shared during her victory speech. She talked about her husband telling their daughters, "Your mom is going to be the governor of Virginia." And then she just paused and said, "Those words have never been spoken in Virginia." Wow. I mean, that just brings the whole historic nature of this thing right down to a really personal, really powerful level. So the big question is, how did she do it? How did Spanberger pull off this huge historic win? Well, it really boils down to a tale of two completely different campaigns. One was all about kitchen table issues, and the other? Well, the other was all about the culture wars. Okay, first, let's just look at the candidates themselves. On one side, you have Abigail Spanberger. Her background, former CIA officer, a 3-term congresswoman, you can see where she gets that pragmatic approach. And then, on the other side, you got winsome Earle Sears, a former Marine and the sitting lieutenant governor, who definitely brought a more combative style to the race. So two really impressive resumes for sure, but they led to two very different campaigns. And right here is where you can see their paths just split completely. Spanberger's whole campaign was focused on those pragmatic, everyday issues. Things like her record of working with both parties, healthcare, the cost of living. But Earle Sears, she went with a totally different playbook. She leaned into an endorsement from Donald Trump and really hammered those hot-button culture war topics that have, worked for Republicans there in the past. And in her victory speech, Spanberger really drove this point home. She said flat out that Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship and the Commonwealth over chaos. So you see, she wasn't just framing this as a win for Democrats. No, she was pitching it as a win for a completely different way of doing politics altogether.
But wait, there might be something else going on here. A much bigger, more powerful force that was at play in this election. We're talking about a political pattern in Virginia that's been almost unbreakable for like half a century.
Yeah, it's something people call the Virginia curse. And for decades, the trend has been crystal clear. Whichever party is not in the White House, that's the party that usually wins the governor's race in Virginia. It's kind of seen as the first big test for a new president's popularity.
And listen, this isn't just some random coincidence. This trend is incredibly consistent. The curse has held true in every single gubernatorial election, going all the way back to 1976, with just one exception in all that time. So with a Republican in the White House right now, Spanberger's win as a Democrat, it fits this nearly 50-year-old pattern to a T. But Spanberger's victory, as big as it was, wasn't the only story of the night for her party. Not at all. It was really the cherry on top of what was a truly dominant night for Democrats, leading to a complete power shift in the state capital, Richmond. So here's how it all shook out. Democrats locked down what's called a government trifecta. What does that mean? Well, they won the governorship, they won the lieutenant governorship, and they expanded their majority in the House of Delegates. That gives them total control to pass whatever legislation they want. And tucked inside that trifecta was another historic first. The new lieutenant governor, Ghazala Hashmi, just became the first Muslim woman ever elected to a statewide office. And I don't just mean in Virginia, I mean in the entire history of the United States. Just an absolutely groundbreaking night on so many levels.
So why is this trifecta such a big deal? Well, for one, it means Democrats can basically pass their agenda without any real opposition. But here's the even bigger piece. It gives them control over redrawing Virginia's congressional maps. This whole process, called redistricting, can give one party a massive advantage in future national elections. It could be a real boost for Democrats in their fight for control of the U.S. House. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question that everyone is asking today. What does this election in Virginia actually signal for the rest of the country?
You know, Spanberger herself kind of hinted at the answer in her speech. She talked about fending off attacks from across the Potomac, which is, a pretty clear shot at the politics of Washington, D.C. She promised to protect Virginia's workers, and that was a very smart, very calculated move to position herself as a local defender against all that national chaos, especially since so many federal workers live right there in Virginia.
And let's be real, all of this intense analysis is happening for one big reason. We are now just 1 year away from the super important 2026 midterm elections. So you better believe political strategists everywhere are tearing this Virginia result apart, looking for any clue, any kind of roadmap to victory.
And that leaves us with the final and most crucial question of all. Was Spanberger's focus on just pure pragmatism and competence? Was that a winning formula that Democrats can copy across the country? Or was this whole thing just a classic case of the Virginia curse and a bunch of unique local factors? That right there is the debate that's going to dominate politics for the next year.